What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Red String Movie Podcast, the podcast where everything is connected. I'm your host, Jacob Thompson, and joining me is my co-host, friend, and the person most likely to get when he's depressed, he secretes goo out of his skin, Alex Perkins. Perk, how you doing tonight?
I'm well, thanks. You're not supposed to know about that.
I caught you slipping one time, and it was messy.
The goo secretions are secret.
Did you
now
accidentally?
All of our 7 listeners will know my
your deep dark secret.
My dark secret. Yeah.
It was after you bleached your hair for swimming, and you're like, I hate this color, and then you just
I got sad and gooey, as most often do.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is the podcast where every week Perk and I review a movie connected to the last one we watched. If you like our show, we post pretty much every Friday on YouTube and podcast services. You can tell your friends about it and all come watch the movies with us. We're doing Japanese anime films right now, and last week we watched Princess Mononoke, and we wanted to do another Ghibli film, so we followed Hayao Miyazaki to this week's movie, Howl's Moving Castle. Perk, why don't you intro it for us?
Yeah, all right. So Howl's Moving Castle is a 2004 joint, also by Hayao Miyazaki, and it is, again, starring different people depending on which versions Jacob and I saw. It follows a sorcerer named Howl who's got a magical castle that's run by his talking fire friend, and there's a girl who gets turned into an elderly woman, and she winds up cleaning his house, and they
go on an adventure, kind of.
They go on an adventure, and the fun fact I found is that after seeing Spirited Away, Christian Bale signed on to just do anything in this movie without even knowing that he was going to be cast as the lead. He's just like, I just want to be a part of it.
Understandable. The other thing to note I want to mention is this is based on a book. This is not a original story by Studio Ghibli or anything. I'll go first, Perk. I haven't gone first in a while. I don't know if I like this movie or not. I have very conflicted feelings about it. I think it's gorgeous. You know, it's kind of right.
I was gonna say at this point it's just obviously it's Ghibli. It's gorgeous. But we have to say it.
Yeah, we got to do it.
Yeah, you have to tip the cap because their baseline is so high.
Yeah,
all the animation is just so good. It's an incredibly beautiful movie, as everyone expected.
And I think all the the imagery, the character designs are just fantastic and really interesting to look at and all that. I think the issue I have with this movie is I was just very confused during the third act of like, what is happening? And, you know, what are the rules of this magic system? And this is, I think, again, it's not be a personal thing where, you know, we talk about with fantasy, there are kind of two different types of magic. There's hard magic and there's soft magic. Soft magic is kind of like Harry Potter, where like the rules are kind of loosey-goosey. They don't really explain everything to you. And hard magic is like everything that's done has a cost, or there is a set rule list. If you break the rules, bad things happen, all that kind of thing. I think of like Hunter x Hunter as like a perfect example of that. I'm more of a hard magic guy because I like rules. And by the end of this, I'm like, what is happening? Why are things happening? What is Sophie doing? And I read in the trivia that it's revealed in the book that she is in fact a witch. And you can kind of figure that out in this movie, but it's never explicitly stated. So when she was like helping people or fixing things, I was like, does she have powers, or is she just really nice, or is it because of the curse that was placed on her she can do things? Like, I just don't really know what was happening. And so by the end of this movie, I'm like, that was kind of interesting. Like there are cool things at play here, like, you know, the anti-war stuff and the fact that like these militaries are using wizards is really cool, and you know, her curse being like her having to accept herself to like turn back to normal. Like, that's all great, but at the end of the day, it was just a lot of muddledness at the end, and it just didn't really all come together for me, I don't think. So yeah, I'm kind of in the middle on this one.
I would also plant myself firmly in the middle. I'd give it like a 3 out of 5 because the animation is gorgeous, and I really like the world, and I really like all the set pieces. I think are fantastic, and all the characters are really good. You mentioned confusion. I was a little confused as to her like kind of rubber banding back and forth between young Sophie and old Sophie. Like, is it just like her spirit breaking the curse or something? But I thought curses were hard to break. I don't know. So I wasn't really sure why all that was going on. This is a movie I watched as a child. I didn't remember most of it, but the one thing I did remember is the absolute blob of a woman, the Witch of the Waste.
Yeah,
because that it was burned into my memory because I was a child and it was
Yeah.
scary.
That scene of her going up the stairs is hilarious. Of just
Yeah.
all the sweat they animated on her. Yeah.
Yep. It's good. It was a good scene for sure. But with the confusion that you described, that I agree. I was a little confused. The confusion was kind of a little bit overpowered. I was just kind of bored. I think that the story is a little too thin for the movie, because it feels like a lot of stuff, and the pacing kind of struggles because of this, because a lot of stuff just happens. Like, all of a sudden Sophie just is instantly turned into an old woman, is like within minutes she's on the ship or on the castle, cleaning it, and then a lot of just things happen around the house, and she hangs out with Markle, and she goes to the queen or the chief sorceress, and it kind of drags a lot in the middle for me. And I think the end it pulls back together, and I like the conclusion, and but in the middle it was dragging a little bit. It was like, I never felt that way about Mononoke. Mononoke was too long, I said, but I never lost attention. Whereas in this movie, I was kind of drifting a little bit in the middle, just kind of when they're just going through the motions.
Yeah, I would agree. I feel like I was still engaged though, because I was expecting it all to lead to something big or like some reveal or something, and that didn't really happen, and that was kind of a bummer. But it makes sense this was based on a book, because I feel like it would work way better as a book because there's way more time and room for detail.
Yes.
Like, apparently, again, I also picked the trivia because I was like, maybe they can help me with confusion. Apparently, in the book, Sophie finds out she's a witch like pretty early, and she's the one that takes out the Witch of the Wastes, and not Suleiman. Like, Sophie conjures like the fire demon things and like takes her out. And I feel like I would have liked that maybe, or just having her have a little more development physically, but also like going back to normal, but also like magically could have been cool. And then there are characters go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I quite like the fact that Sophie is just a human, because it kind of gives us a POV character, and I feel like things would maybe even get a little more convoluted if, like, 30 minutes in, she finds out she's a witch, and now she's got the powers, and Howl's got the powers, and I think Markle is sorcerer in training, and all that. I like having like a grounded human character, but there are things that would make more sense if Sophie was a witch. And I will say though, I like the use of Suleiman, especially with like taking the Witch of the Waste's power. So I think that would be something that would be a little more vindictive of Sophie, and potentially I don't know, detract from her purity as just a purely good character. But
sure. Yeah, I get that. And yeah, speaking of the supporting characters, like, I like Markle a lot. Like, he's a really like cute kid, and like he's a nice presence, but also I'm like, why is he here? What reason in this world is he on Howl's ship? Like, how much is like, oh, we got a funny little family, and it's like, yeah, what happened to Markle? You know, like, I want to know.
Yeah, I have to imagine he's just like Howl's apprentice, and he adds a lot of levity.
Yeah, his old man disguise is so great. He just pulls the hood over and the beard comes down.
Also, in the dub, Markle is voiced by a 0-year-old Josh Hutcherson.
I heard about that. Funny. Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, Markle's all right. There are a lot of things in this movie that don't necessarily contribute too much to the story or move the plot along, which is something that I really like usually. But I also do kind of need that plot to stay convinced and connected to the story. Yeah,
for sure. And yeah, going back to the characters, like with Suleiman, why did she just like give up at the end? Like, they got the happy ending, she's like, I'm giving up now. It's like, what was she after? Was she after Howl's heart? And because it's back in his body, then she's like, we're good? Or,
so I think it was what the king decided, we're not doing the war anymore.
No, that was Howl in disguise.
Oh, at the end? Oh no, you're right.
Yeah, when he comes in off the plane, he's like, we can't do that because it'll hurt our citizens. That was Howl decides. And the real king came and he's like, we're about to bomb people, yay. And then he runs out. We never see him again. It was the Scarecrow was going to go, and Suleiman ends the war.
No, the Scarecrow ends the war, yeah.
The Scarecrow was going to go back and end it because he was a prince. Bye-bye, Scarecrow, best character. Gotta say that.
Oh, he was great.
Best character in the movie.
Love the Scarecrow.
But maybe she's like, it's inevitable, so I guess we'll just end it. Which, like, yay, I'm glad we ended the war, but also it seems like super just like flippant. Like, you were just killing all these people, and now you're like, I guess we'll stop now. I don't know. Like, the anti-war stuff, I'm a big anti-war fan of that message, but I feel like it was kind of just thrown in, and I don't know if it fully added to the entire like plot and theme of the movie, because the theme seems to be like self-acceptance. So then why do you also have this war stuff going on?
I do think that the setting in war times is it's good. I think it does get a little bit lost in the shuffle, and you're right. There's kind of multiple themes at play, none of which really get explored to the fullest, but yeah, the war is more of a setting than like an actual part of the story, I guess.
Yeah.
But
which is a very cool setting. Like, again, wizards being used for war is one of the coolest things ever. Like, I love that. I think I've seen it before in anime. I was mentioning before we started that. Like, that specific thing reminds me of something I've seen, and I cannot remember what it is, and it drives me nuts. But like the ships like dropping out the little like demon dudes is like really, really cool. And like Howl's like fighting him at night, kind of like Batman, but like we don't see a lot of that either. And I guess I'm pretty sure the implication is if he uses his powers too much, he'll turn into that monster fully. Which is, I don't know, which is interesting, but it's like, I was thinking about today, it's like, okay, so he's supposedly a coward, but also he's fighting against the war every single night. And just, I don't know. Like, he was a fun enough character, like I like his personality and interactions, but if I think about it too much, I just don't really understand him, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. And I think that his character is a little bit limited. We see, parts of it, but it's usually as like just him laying down because he's recovering. The romance angle seems a little quick.
I agree, yeah.
But I did like how the Scarecrow just gets to hold an L.
Honestly, dude.
You got true love's kiss. Except, sorry, bud. You're not her true love.
Yep. Yeah. Poor Scarecrow. He did so much and he got so little.
He takes the L with grace and pogoes off into the distance.
I did love that. We saw it through the dog. He's still pogoing, which is awesome. But yeah, like speaking on that, like, so I'm assuming Sophie's curse is broken by the end of the movie, but she still has gray hair. So I'm like, is it broken or not? Or is she currently in a rubber banded state? I don't think it's
broken. Yeah, I think she's just like, she's worked her way back through like spirit or something. Because it's established that she's not a witch by them not establishing that she is a witch. So I think that it's just like that's her most enlightened form under the curse.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Which I did like the rubber banding. I think it was cool that when she's becoming more like speaking her mind and being true to herself, she was getting like younger, and then as soon as she doubted herself, she'd go back, and when she's sleeping, she's back in young form because she's not like actively thinking, which is kind of cool. Right. But yeah, by the end, it's like if she had brown hair, I'd be like happy because I'm like, oh cool, they broke the curse. But if she still has gray hair, I'm like, I don't know, I'm confused again.
While we're talking about her appearance, I always love when movies are like, this character's ugly. They have to tell us that because the character's not ugly. Like, oh, she's got eyebrows. Oh no! Imagine.
Yeah, one thing I did like
not the best haircut. Yeah. Obviously, she's ugly as hell.
One thing I did like about her character is they could have very easily said in the beginning of the movie before she gets the curse that, oh, you're an old soul or you act like an elderly woman, But instead, like, she transforms, and the line that I really liked was, she's like, oh, these clothes finally suit me. And it's like, that's the implication. It's like she's kind of acts like an elderly person, or she thinks she does.
Without hand feeding us.
Yeah, without beating her head with it. And I also was impressed by how well you just buy she is an older woman, like, pretty quick. And it's so much so that I'm like, is this part of the curse? Where she's like acting more like she's like, oh, old age will do this to you. And it's like, you're not old. Like, you are, but you are. And it's just, so yeah. again, more confusion. I feel like the book is probably better, is kind of my thesis of this whole conversation, is the book's probably better because it probably goes more in depth and explains things better.
That's fair. I'll fill you in since you watched the original Japanese, but
yeah,
the dub is once again, in my opinion, good. Christian Bale is good as Howl. He is trying, you can tell. Emily Mortimer plays young Sophie, and she's good. I think Lauren Bacall, like the classic actor or actress, was she plays old Sophie, and she's also great. I already mentioned the outstanding Markle, played by like 4-year-old Josh Hutcherson, but the best part is that the what's the fire's name?
Calcifer.
Calcifer is played by Billy Crystal.
Okay.
He does a really good job. Like he has a very distinct voice, so like you're like, oh yeah, that's Billy Crystal, but there's good emotion in his voice, and it's not abrasive like it can be. And his dynamic with Howl's really good, and their dialogue together is really good. So
that's good to hear.
Once again, a good dub. I thought Jacob will tell me in a couple days that it's actually a bad dub.
Well, maybe okay. So I might have had a change of heart on this because, well, maybe not. I'm glad to hear you were also confused, because I was kind of wondering. I'm like, because I spoke to Perk off the podcast about how I watched the same scene sub and dub from Mononoke, and it was like pretty different in the translation, and that was kind of interesting. And I'm wondering, I imagine the dub is more localized to Americans than the sub. I mentioned the sub's got pretty direct translation, whereas, you know, for the actors doing the dub, they kind of make it, the sayings more, I don't know, things that we were used to hearing, right? Yeah. So I was wondering if the dub for this movie would be less confusing if they like cleared some things up when they were kind of rewriting some of the lines, but maybe not if you're still confused. But the point is, maybe I should have watched the dub, because maybe I would have been less confused if they did more work on the localization as opposed to just the direct translation in the sub, where like a lot of times I'm like, what does that mean? You know, like,
yeah,
what are they trying to say?
I do think the dubs are pretty supremely American. I mean, even to the point where it is pretty funny, but Christian Bale, an English actor, is doing an American accent.
Yeah.
Emily Mortimer isn't, I don't think. Yeah, maybe she is. The dubs feel American, and I think there have even been like separate British dubs.
I believe it. Yeah. I know that's something I've kind of noticed with anime movies in particular. I feel like when I watch shows, and again, this is from my personal experience, I'm not trying to say this is an overarching thing, but like if there's like a pun, like a Japanese word pun, they'll put like a little like parentheses in the captions of like, hey, here's just so you know, like this is what's happening. It's like a pun on this word, and that's why it's funny. Whereas if it was a dub, they would try to change that joke to make it work in American English. You know what I mean? They wouldn't they wouldn't do the same thing and explain it. So I wonder if something like that, where it's like I'm missing out some of the meaning because a lot of Japanese, there's like, what is it, like something like 10 different words that mean love in Japanese, but it'll just always be love if you see it in a sub. Yeah. So like I'm missing some context, I'm sure, with this stuff. So maybe for these movies, the dub would be better, but
maybe, I don't know. But I will say an example of what you're talking about, in Odd Taxi, the porcupine raps were translated super well. Like they were, like they were not direct verbatim translations in the dub. They were rewritten so that they made sense and rhymed in English.
Yeah, which is awesome, and that's what matters for that character.
Yes, and you can tell, like you can tell when effort was put into a dub, even if it maybe doesn't hit, versus just an absolute phone in. Like we got the same voice actor to play 11 characters. And,
right.
Yeah. But I feel like Ghibli does a pretty thorough job at their dubs, because they have like the most appeal of any anime movies in America. I feel like
100%. So yeah, anything else you want to mention for Howl's Moving Castle? That's pretty much all I got.
Not really. Yeah, I unfortunately, it's just kind of middle of the road. It didn't stand out too much, and it hurts that we watched Mononoke last week, which is a superior film, in my opinion. So there's the, you may not you don't need to compare every film, but with the
Right.
juxtaposition that we watched it last week, it's hard not to.
Right. As far as recommendations, I had a couple things pop into my head. Harry
But
Potter.
not the one that you were struggling with, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Harry Potter, I mean, I think this was giving me Harry Potter vibes for me as far as just kind of the magic and the world's a little bit fucked up and all that. My guess,
it's like a lighter fantasy.
Yeah.
Where it's like the magic is adjacent to the real world.
Yeah, there's still like industrial revolution, which was very cool. Like the ships that like two people could stand on with the little wings were awesome.
Mm-hmm.
My guess for the anime I was thinking of was Black Clover. I think they use wizards in the military in that one, but I'm not positive. I didn't love that show. But that's maybe what I want to check out. And then I'm grasping here, Perk, of what is my memory trying to go to. But I think the scene where they're going up the stairs and they're just like dying, and they get to the top and Sophie's like, why don't you help her? And he's like, we can't help anybody. They got to get up on their own. The guy who says that has like a hat, like a tall hat. And he's like being kind of a dick. He reminded me of the guy from Robots, the little puppet robot who's at the front gate, who's like, you can come in. And then he closes the gate on Ewan McGregor, He's a little shitter. And I don't know. For some reason, like there's a trial to like get to the place. And then when you get to the place, they're an asshole. I'm grasping, Perk. I'm grasping hard. But that's what I came up with.
Fair enough. I have nothing. So that's a better connection than I came up with.
There we go.
My recommendation based on this one is to watch Howl's Moving Castle when you were 10 years old.
Show it to your kid.
It was more effective for me back then.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna try to see Spirited Away in the theaters this October because I've not seen that one yet.
I am also planning on that. I can't remember if I've seen Spirited Away or not.
That's I think if you polled everyone in America, that's would be the most common number one ranking for Ghibli.
I've been doing a little digging, and there are a few that I definitely want to watch. Like Whisper of the Heart, I haven't seen. I've heard really good things. I have seen Kiki's Delivery Service, but I wouldn't mind rewatching that because it's really good.
Yeah, I want to see The Wind Rises, the last one they did.
The Wind Rises as well. Yeah.
It's not Miyazaki, but I would like to see Grave of the Fireflies. I've heard that movie is absolutely heartbreaking, but super good. I
don't want to watch that movie. Well, it's like, hey, do you want to just sit down on a random afternoon and watch Schindler's List? No.
Well, it's good.
Should you? Probably.
You can't watch it anywhere because it's not streaming or renting. You can't. It's unwatchable. So maybe that's a good thing for now.
I bet you Grave of the Fireflies would be a good companion piece to Oppenheimer, unironically.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. Yeah, that is our review of Howl's Moving Castle. Before we say we're watching next week, we got one mini little bonus review from Perk. What do you got?
So, I have now seen Oppenheimer in theaters 3 times. The first time I saw it because I was worried about FOMO, and I wanted to do the back-to-back with Barbie. The second time I went and saw a 70mm showing, which they always ask, like, can you actually tell? Yes, you can. It's crystal clear. The picture was amazing. The colors were so fantastic. And I talked about this with Jacob, but hearing the projector and like looking over my shoulder and seeing into the projector room and seeing the frames slide by, just so cool. Such a fun cinema experience. But then I finally, just yesterday, I was again worried. I'm like, when am I ever going to get the chance to watch this movie in IMAX? I've got to go see it in IMAX.
Yep.
So I went to Burnsville after work and watched the IMAX showing of Oppenheimer on what is a tremendously large screen, which I always forget about. I was maybe a little too close, but it's so immersive. Obviously, the screen is fantastic, and seeing it in the true aspect ratio it's worth it. The visuals are great, especially in the first half of the movie when you've got some of the more almost like Terrence Malick, like space shots or like atom depictions, and those look absolutely phenomenal. An underrated aspect of IMAX is the sound.
Yep, I'd agree.
The sound, it just hits so much heavier because of the systems they have in place, and that is a great movie sound-wise. Especially some of the scenes like the gymnasium scene, which I think I could watch that scene on repeat for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite scenes ever put to film.
Yeah.
And yeah, just overall, I'm really glad I went. I accidentally got a free beer because the guy forgot to ring it up. Also, fun fact for the locals out there, the Burnsville IMAX or the Burnsville cinema at the Burnsville Center has the cheapest fountain drink is $6 and a Deschutes fresh squeezed is $5.50. Which is just enabling, honestly.
Yeah, that's actually hilarious. I wonder if it's because they're separate. Maybe they're separate businesses technically.
I'm sure they are. Yeah, I'm sure there's a distinction.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Well, good. I'm glad you got to see it in IMAX. That's the only time I saw it was in IMAX, and yeah, the sound is amazing.
And I can't even remember the last time I saw a movie 3 times in theaters, but really, I just had such a good experience with this movie and the whole phenomenon, and I love Nolan to death. I know it's like almost frowned upon to be a big Nolan fan anymore, but his movies just, they hit in such a way that I'm really glad I got to see it a bunch of times. Yeah, I must have been like in middle school the last time I saw a movie 3 times in the theater, because what else are you going to do during the summer? But I'll happily support big auteur movies. Yeah. Please give us more. Although I don't want to see Polly Pocket. Like we can drop some IP, just give us more, give funding to people who are going to make creative ideas.
Yeah. Like I said, hope the creator is good this year. That's, to me, seems like a standout new IP that could be good.
The trailer looks good. I'm looking forward to it. All signs point to it being terrible. I hope that's the case.
I don't know. Not all signs.
The all signs meaning
Rogue One.
Yeah, but all signs meaning I have seen it advertised nowhere outside of a theater.
Well, that means it's going to do poorly. It doesn't mean it'll be bad.
It just means the studio doesn't believe in it.
Yeah, but they also didn't believe in Blade Runner 2049. 2049, thank you.
Masterpiece.
Yeah, exactly. I almost said 2077, but that's Cyberpunk. There's too many years.
There's a lot of cyberpunk-y type stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I love Oppenheimer. It redeemed, not like Nolan was in the shitter with me. I just didn't love Tenet, and I was like, I don't know about this, but Oppenheimer brought me back. All right, I'm back on the Nolan train. Excited to see what he does next. I'm assuming another unique film about time, because they're always about time. But yeah, very excited to see what his next project will be. All right, well, that is our show for this week. Next week, we're going to be watching one of my favorite movies, Your Name, which I have seen, Perk has not. Connection is Ryunosuke Kamiki, who played Markle in Howl's Moving Castle, and then he plays the main character in Your Name in the sub.
I will be watching this one subbed, by the way. Don't get mad, anime truthers out there.
I've heard the dub is pretty good for this, but
but I'll do it for Ghibli because that's what I grew up with. But
fair enough.
I'll watch the sub for anything else.
As far as watching it, weirdly, only the dub is on Crunchyroll. Otherwise, you can rent it. The sub used to be on there. I don't know what happened. But yeah, you can watch the dub on Crunchyroll. If you want to watch a sub, you got to rent it. So,
damn, now it's costing me money to be a true anime fan.
I know, right? What a shame.
Damn.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching Your Name next week on Crunchyroll and to rent. But until then, thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye-bye.